What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Today we have something very special. IGN and pretty much the rest of the media world has gotten access and gotten the ability to, over the last couple days, play Spider-Man 2 and record footage of it, interview some of the development team, and there is a ton of information that has come out thanks to that. Now, IGN did an interview with Insomniac talking about the evolution of their tech and how they've implemented certain nuanced aspects to Spider-Man 2 in order to improve on the mechanics, the gameplay, the environment, pretty much everything we've come to love about the original Spider-Man, put that into Spider-Man 2 and make it that much better. So without further ado, we're going to take a look at this video. I'm going to stop it in between, assuming they say something interesting, which I know they will. So we're going to stop it, provide commentary and things like that. But if you don't want to listen to the commentary, I will link the full video, IGN's video, down below if you just want to watch it for yourself and divulge what may stand out to you. But for those who are sticking around, hanging out, watching this with me, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm really excited about Spider-Man 2 if you haven't been able to tell from the videos. And speaking of videos, if you haven't seen my other reaction to the Spider-Man New York trailer that dropped during Sony's State of Play yesterday, please check it out. I highly recommend it. Drop a like if you do enjoy. Subscribe if you're new here. All that good YouTube stuff. And without further ado, we're not going to waste any more time. Let's get into the video.
Let's see if you have the strength to finish what you started.
Oh, the Venom suit.
One of the great things about having the last two games is that it gives us a lot of confidence, a lot of knowledge about what works. And so we can take that and we can start to push forward into new places. This is really the first one where we have two Spider-Men in the game at the same time. Again,
I'm going to pause it in between. Hopefully you guys forgive me. I won't try to do long discussions in between, but I just want to say having the ability to play as Spider-Man in two different perspectives, two different regions and zones, two different boroughs as both Peter and Miles is absolutely insane. Bravo, 10 out of 10 already.
And so allowing them to have those divergent abilities that are a little bit different, that you have to know what you're getting into with each one, that you can solve different problems a little bit differently in combat, goes a long way towards what we can do. Both characters have a really strong arc, and we invest a lot into their story for each of them. And so I think, you know, playing the game, you'll see.
Oh, dude, look at that. So we've gotten a few glimpses of Lizard. We got one at the last big State of Play that they did for Spider-Man 2, and then we've gotten tiny glimpses of the character, but this is a great shot of what Venom is going to look like in Spider-Man 2, and I can already tell the amount of detail that they put into this character. Lizard is a pretty ferocious kind of enemy for, you know, I guess quote-unquote enemy, or, you know, a boss that you'll have to take on in the game. It's actually it seems like one of the earlier bosses that you'll take on, at least from what the gameplay has alluded to. But amazing detail. Look at the spikes on the character model, and that green is greening. You know what I'm saying? Beautiful.
You'll definitely see that each of them is in the right place. They have their own abilities. We present opportunities to the player to leverage their unique abilities as you go through each of those missions. And you know, I think that it always ends up feeling like the right Spider-Man for the mission.
Okay, so I love that too. One of the interesting challenges that Insomniac is faced with when it comes to incorporating two very different Spider-Men is you have to find a way to not only highlight their strengths, but also give them moments where both of these characters can shine. Because I feel like it has to be so easy for one of these characters like Miles Morales or Peter to kind of feel like a side character in the other story. And so I'm very interested and very excited to see how they balance those two things, not just in terms of their abilities, both of the characters feeling different, but also feeling powerful and at the same time feeling balanced. Whereas like because you don't want to create an imbalance to where you just feel like using Miles because Miles is more fun to play. Maybe his abilities are better, maybe, you know, whatever it is. And so, you know, vice versa when it comes to Peter. And so I'm really excited. And I feel like for me personally, I don't think there will come a time where I will rather play as one over the other. I like how there's side missions that require one over the other. I like how their stories are going to be so uniquely different, but also they're going to intertwine at some point, you know, between these two characters as they'll face a common enemy. And it looks like Miles is actually going to have to help Peter at some point through the story. So it feels like both of these characters are really going to get the spotlight in this game. And that's something I'm really, really pumped about.
You're not getting away that easy.
I think there's still always that struggle for some of the characters. I mean, you can't have Spider-Man without him trying to balance between his personal life and his spider life.
True.
And so, you know, I think for Peter, you know, he's in a position where he's trying to find a way. You know, he basically lost his job at the end of end of the first game, right, when Otto's lab shut down, and so he's trying to find how to move forward after May's death, and how to, you know, kind of put his life back together, you know, on the personal side. And so there's a lot of, you know, there's struggle for him there, and moving forward with some of those things. On the Miles side, you know, he's just about to graduate from high school, and he's got to figure out what he's going to do. And he's got this Spider-Man thing that's a growing part of his life, but what is he going to do with the rest of it? And so how he interacts and how he makes choices there, what he's trying to figure out, you know, the next phase of his life looks like, not just with Spider-Man, but as Miles Morales, and what that means.
That is okay. That is so cool too. Is not only, you know, and this is what I really came to enjoy about not only Spider-Man, the remastered version, but also about Miles Morales too, is that there was always this really strong emphasis on the character, right? You look at a game like this where you have the ability as a player to play as Miles Morales and play as Spider-Man. And I feel like the ability to play as Spider-Man can so easily overshadow the character himself. And when I played the first game and when I played Miles Morales, I was surprised and never stopped loving how engaged I was as a player in the character in Peter and in Miles, and not just playing Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong. Playing as Spider-Man is definitely the cherry on top, and it's definitely one of the most enticing aspects of the game. But the ability to go and just have dinner with his mom and with his best friend and with Peter, going to see Otto in the lab and doing science experiments, that's something I continue to praise Insomniac for, is their ability to create desire and create intrigue in those moments themselves. Moments that you might consider to be relatively mundane, right? You look at, like I said, you look at playing as Spider-Man and you really think, well, why would I want to play as Spider-Man? I want to put the suit on. I want to run around the city. Like I said, those are great aspects, but you got to give it to Insomniac and the writing team for creating intrigue and creating just real life in the characters themselves. And you're going to see that a lot in Spider-Man 2, apparently, where I didn't think about this. Both of these characters are really at pinnacle points in their lives. Like, Peter's really just trying to figure out how he can balance and how he can move forward in life, right? And the same is going with Miles, who is starting a whole new chapter of his life and trying to figure out his, you know, where he wants to go with it and what he wants to do, while also having a major responsibility of being Spider-Man as well, and the struggles and the burdens that come with that. So I really feel like, just off of what we've seen, there's going to be a real kind of story here, and I feel like it's going to be one of the best stories that we've seen in a game in a long time.
For him, and you know, he's got his family around, he's got his friends around, and how they, you know, interact with him and play with that.
I'm just here to save my friend.
I don't want to get too much into, you know, like,
that was cold,
where we end up going with Venom for the most part, but I will say that it was really important for us to tell the right story for how the symbiote impacts Peter's life. You know, we obviously show early, or at the end of the first game, and hear that there's some connection with the symbiote and Harry, and how they're trying to heal his sickness. And so what we really wanted to focus on was making sure that it felt like how the symbiote was interacting with Peter, and what that took him on, and the journey that he had to go through, and how that symbiote brings something out in him that maybe he hadn't exposed or hadn't really thought about much. And so for us...
Okay, so obviously from the movies, we knew that, I don't know too much about, you know, I don't know everything about the character of Venom, so forgive me if this is kind of a dumb question, but as far as, you know, the only evidence I've ever really seen of Venom in a live action perspective exists within the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, in which you see the way that, you know, Peter gets rid of the symbiote suit is through high frequency sound waves. And I guess that those vibrations of high frequency sound waves really triggers the symbiote to want to release from Peter. And it looks like, if we take it back just a second, it looks like there's going to be some sort of interaction here between electricity and or perhaps the electricity is creating some sort of high frequency sound. I'm not exactly sure. Are those turbines or something like that? You can clearly see, and the point I'm getting at is that you can clearly see how Miles is going to play a picture into this. My assumption and my theory is that Peter is going to become desperate to help Harry. And in his effort to do that, he's going to find himself with the symbiote suit. And then he's going to find himself too deep. He's going to be dark. He's going to be pushing people away. He's going to become dangerous and erratic. And but MJ, I think, is going to come to Miles and say, hey, you need to help him. And I think there's going to be a really epic moment in the game where we're going to play as Miles, and Miles is going to have to fight Peter in the symbiote suit, and using his electricity, that's how he's going to be able to defeat him. That's just a theory. That's just a theory. But I've always been wondering, ever since we knew that Peter was going to be taken over by the symbiote suit, I was curious how Miles was going to play a picture and how he was going to potentially have to be the one to take on the responsibility of bringing Peter back to himself and saving him from himself, essentially.
That maybe he hadn't exposed or hadn't really thought about much. And so for us, what we let that drive our choices. And part of, Eddie Brock is a fantastic character, and everything. But for us, it was really about figuring out how the symbiote and Peter interacted and how that impacted his life, and making sure to keep focused on that element.
That is pretty cool. Symbiote blast.
Having things like the symbiote abilities for Peter that kind of come in, that you can use strategically, that you can use as kind of a power move that didn't exist in the previous game, as a way that we can really allow players to express themselves, to have solutions to problems that might have existed in the last game that they didn't have good solutions for and had to use just base systems. So they can express themselves in a lot of new ways. Some other things that we really look for by introducing the parry mechanic and that defensive mechanic, we were able to really leverage that. It was really amazing to see what that did for our boss fights.
A parry mechanic, guys. Now, this is something that obviously I think exists in a number of different games. I know Lies of P is one that I think utilizes a parry mechanic. I want to say, do the Dark Souls games use a parry mechanic as well? I don't remember. I mean, I played Elden Ring, but I wasn't trying to parry. I was trying to get in there. You know what I mean? And so, but either way, obviously you think of something like Tears of the Kingdom, I think, is a great example, obviously, of utilizing a parry mechanic in order to stun enemies and things like that. So it's cool that that's going to be a play in here too, considering that you don't have swords and shields and things that you would parry. So I'm curious how that's going to work.
So if you played the game today, you got a little taste of what the lizard fight might look like, and being able to have that one-on-one fight and have them force you to pay attention, to read the fight, to understand what the boss is doing, and to know which defensive move you have to use at the time, to know when to use your offensive moves. And the fact that every one of our bosses can respond to all of those abilities that the players have means
that's pretty
that
cool.
You're getting a better fight. You're getting a deeper fight, a more mechanically sound fight that is really allowing players to have those intimate fights that are really climatic. They still have great narrative driving every single one of them, but just the mechanics and the gameplay of it also is really, really sad.
Wow, dude, that's pretty insane. So I said previously that Lizard was going to be one of the earlier fights, or at least that was my assumption, because it seems like everybody got to do this, that got to play the game, got to partake in this Lizard fight. However, if you can look here, it looks like I think 25 might be your level, possibly. I would assume it's what level you are. And so perhaps this is much later in the game that you get the symbiote suit and you fight Lizard. Look how many web shooters you have too. Holy moly. And was that like 10? I think it's like 10.
Satisfying, and really gives us the opportunity to do that in a much better way. And then traversal, it's just adding things like the gliding with the web wings, adding things like the slingshot, and just making sure that those all integrate together. And again, just building and giving players new things. And so one of the things that we do in this game is, we doubled the size of the city. So we've now got Brooklyn and Queens there, right?
Dude, adding Brooklyn and Queens was such a pro move, because it would have been, again, this all comes down to fleshing out the world as a whole. And when you're bringing in two very different characters like Peter and Miles, I feel like you got to bring in their worlds. You got to bring in the characters' worlds and what makes them, right? And you think of Brooklyn, you think of Miles Morales, and that's really his stomping ground. And so to bring that into this game is such a pro move. And not only that, I gotta say I'm gonna have so much fun with the wingsuit. It's not to say I'm gonna stop web slinging. I very much fully anticipate web slinging will continue, but it's gonna be so cool to transition between the two and just kind of want to glide throughout the city. It's not just like, I feel like getting around the city in the first two games wasn't boring. It never got boring. I loved web slinging. I hardly ever fast traveled, unless I really needed to like get somewhere fast. But usually I just enjoy just swinging around through the city and getting distracted by things that are happening around me and just, you know, venturing off the beaten path. But the wingsuit, man, I'm telling y'all, that is going to be a major W.
But Brooklyn and Queens they're not built like Manhattan is. You know, they're a lot lower. They've got a lot more trees, a lot of things like that. And then you've got the river in between. And we say, well, how do you traverse all of that? You know, you can just swing, but it doesn't always work. It's not always the optimal way to do it. And so having the opportunity to bring in the web wings, bring in the slingshot, and give you a sense of,
dude,
I can traverse different. There's a different personality to my traversal as I go around the city and go around the different places and have that experience as something that is really new and really interesting and gives each of those two new boroughs kind of a new feel to how you experience it while still being Spider-Man.
That's so sick, man.
Everything we do here builds on each other and makes our next game better. And so, you know, we had a lot of streaming stuff and everything from building open world games, and then we go into Ratchet, and all of a sudden we're like, well, now we want to just jump instantly, right? And so you get
look, guys, Ratchet and Clank is one of my favorite games of all time. I've said this before, they could continue to make Ratchet and Clank games till they're blue in the face, and I would continue to play them. I would continue to buy them because this franchise is it's so fun. It brings me back to my childhood of just playing just fun platformers with cool weapons, great humor, different variety of worlds and things to discover and find and secrets and stuff like that. Inside jokes, like all that stuff was amazing. So I know it's unrelated, but I really hope that they continue to make these games.
Those things, you hit the crystal, you jump from world to world.
And it's part of the reason why I continue to support Insomniac, because I just want them to, the games they make are some of my favorites.
Then we say, well, how can we use that? How can we use that in the next game? And so when we came into it and we looked at what the team was doing on Ratchet and we looked at what we could do in this game, we said, well, they can jump, we can jump. You know, we've got all this technology. And so just moving it forward in that way definitely inspired us and allowed us to keep building. We've built so much new tech to take advantage of the PS5 and the ability to just stream so much in that, like, our long views in this game are such a level up over what they were in the previous game. Because we put so much effort into tech for those views, for what those distant buildings look like, for adding new LEDs of those distant buildings, for making sure that our skyboxes and our atmospheres look fantastic, that we doubled the size of the city and still had to keep everything in memory and still had to make it so that when you fast travel, we can load where you're gonna be in just instantly in under a second as you go in there. We've got our distant building system.
I mean, distant building system, it's going to be insane knowing that this game, I mean, because before you could kind of see glimpses of the surrounding area, right, over the bridge and things like that, but you couldn't really go there. So to have the ability to cross the bridge into Miles's territory and and go there, I'm curious. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to go there as Peter, you know, but I'm assuming like most of the missions in that area in Brooklyn will probably be centered around Miles, with a couple, you know, potentially some crossover, right? But I think it's insane that with this new tech that they're utilizing, it's just going to create such a new level of immersion. And I'm not trying to put too much pressure on it, but I truly feel like this could really be one of the few next gen experiences that exist within consoles today. And that, you know, obviously I don't want to take anything from Ratchet. I think Ratchet really pushed the PS5 to the limits, which obviously, ironically, is another Insomniac game. And God of War Ragnarok, I think, was a prime example of just how far gaming has come, with consoles. Because I truly feel like consoles move gaming. You know, I think many game developers make games with consoles in mind, PlayStation, Xbox, things like that. And so, I think PC players definitely benefit from, greater capacity with rigs and things like that, allowing you for more fidelity, shadows, things like that. You're able to just push it a lot more. But a game like Spider-Man obviously was made with the PS5 in mind, and utilizing that tech. And so that's gonna be really cool to see. And I can't wait for this game to probably 10 years from now make its way to PC.
Which is our imposter system
Probably
that
like
we
5
draw.
years.
And that's been upgraded to have new LODs and things that we stream in. That's again the PS5 allowing us to swap that stuff out on the fly. We've done a bunch of work in terms of lighting. Our lighting engine has gotten a lot of passes and changes. We've done a lot of work on what our street lighting looks like and how that works, and what the material responses are. We've gotten a better handle on ray tracing and more things being able to be ray traced and supported. We've got new things with our skyboxes in this game. Look ridiculous, and the way that our sky renders and the way that the light.
Guys, I know this is crazy, but like, you see how at the bottom there's a subway? It would be so insane if you're able to just go into the subway as you're maybe chasing someone down and then just immediately come out. I don't know if that's an inaccessible point, but it definitely looks accessible, so I'm going to assume that you can.
Light comes through in that, and the work that they've done to make sure that our open world looks really amazing at all the times of day that it shows up. And so, you know, we've got additional things with what we've done with foliage, what we've done with just the way that we leverage, you know, Houdini and procedural generation to get our ground planes and stuff looking great. So there's all kinds of elements, not to mention just
what kind of chair are they sitting on? I need that.
Looks that come into play to bring it together and make it really look next gen. And I feel like even looking at the remastered game, when we've played, you know, when I've been playing Spider-Man 2 for so long, and I go back and look at some of the old games, I'm like, I don't realize how much of a jump it is until you see it next to each other. You know, when you really A/B test it, you're like, wow.
Wow, I mean, just looking at it, like, look at the shadows and the lighting and the depth and detail of the buildings. Like, you can clearly see that there's a clear difference. And, you know, when games make such generational leaps like it looks like Spider-Man 2 is making, it begs the question, like, could you ever see yourself going back to the old game? I feel like for me, definitely, I definitely would go back to Spider-Man Remastered. But, you know, looking at it side by side like this, it reminds me very much of Tears of the Kingdom. When I played Breath of the Wild for the first time, or the first like 5 times, I couldn't imagine like the things that were in that game could ever be capitalized upon, and that they could ever grow on those things. And then Tears of the Kingdom came out, and I was like, dude, like with the fusing and just the way you can get around, and the speed at which your stamina refills, and just little changes like that have had me feeling like, dude, I don't know if I could ever go back to Breath of the Wild. And if I did, I feel like I would really miss those mechanics that were improved upon. And it looks like Spider-Man 2 with the wingsuit and things like that, man, it's just going to create such an addicting playstyle that it's going to be damn near impossible to go back and truly feel the same about the old one. And I mean, that's a testament to how great the sequel is, right? Like, you don't want a sequel that really just kind of copies and pastes the things that were in the first game, right? When you play a sequel, in my opinion, I really feel like you play a sequel to feel like it's been years since you played the original. You should feel like this game has truly evolved and is next level. And I'm very excited to play Spider-Man 2. Again, I probably will play Spider-Man Remastered again at some point. In fact, we're currently doing a playthrough right now. You should totally check it out. Same as Pug. But when it comes to Spider-Man 2, yeah, I definitely feel like I could go back to the remaster and I would still appreciate it. But I feel like with what I've seen with Spider-Man 2, I definitely will want to come back to it.
This is a huge jump in terms of fidelity, in terms of execution, in terms of just how clean everything looks.
Oh, wind gust can push you up?
Creature.
I got you.
Explosives, that's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, guys. So IGN had an exclusive interview with senior programming director Doug Sheehan, and let me just say, it provided a lot of information. We got a lot of new details and really just a bit more clarification as to some of the mechanics, some of the tech that they've utilized in creating and expanding on Marvel's, you know, Spider-Man New York setting, and exactly what they're doing to really push the limits of this sequel and make it feel like, you know, it really is something that has made leaps and bounds from the original, the Spider-Man Remastered. And so, man, all of the details that dropped from that were absolutely insane. I feel like from just just from the explanation of how they were utilizing some of the tech to increase the textures of the buildings, to increase the depth of the world, obviously given the fact that they are combining two different settings, was great. And in terms of my personal impressions of this discussion about the evolution of their tech, I mean, it was incredible. Like, games like this have me really excited for so many different reasons. So any sort of additional context and information that we can be provided with as we get closer to the release of this game is nothing short of incredible. I really enjoy diving into just the minds of the developers and really just how game development happens as a whole, and just better understanding, because I think it provides such a greater and deeper appreciation for the art itself and for the game that you're about to play. Because when you pick it up for the first time and you see those buildings, you're like, oh yeah, they talked about the depth of the buildings and how they were planning on, doing certain things, and the combat and how that has evolved and what they've kind of done. I feel like you when you learn those things, again, it just provides such a greater appreciation for the final product. And that's really what I seek to get when it comes to playing, games in general. So I want to know as much information as I can about where the inspiration came from, what changes, what things could have happened that you decided against, and what things did the team really light up about and was like, yeah, we got to do that. That's amazing. And so watching these things is always something that's really exciting to me. Obviously, like the wingsuit, we got a little bit more gameplay about the wingsuit and how that's going to be a new traversal feature within the game, and how that's really going to change the way you maneuver around the city. That's something that's really exciting for me, as well as the combat. It seems like Lizard is going to be a huge part of Peter's motivation as he tries to, I guess, save Lizard and save his best friend Harry, and how Miles is going to play into all of that. And it seems like there's just so much more at stake here, and there's so much more on the line. And I think that that's going to create such a more grounded, real story that players are going to connect to and gravitate towards, whether you're really gravitating towards Peter's story or Miles' story, or how these two stories from these two characters connect with each other. I feel like this is like the storytelling in this game just already feels top tier, and I haven't even seen probably a glimpse of what exactly it's going to be including, and so I'm really excited about that. But let me know in the comments, guys, what is something that's really stood out to you? What is something you're really excited to play and experience when it comes to playing Spider-Man 2 when it drops in just a little over a month? I'm really excited about this game. I cannot wait to play it. And if you guys want to experience the journey through my eyes, I will be doing a full playthrough of this series and would love to experience that journey with you. So be on the lookout for that when the game drops. But until then, guys, if you enjoy the content, you enjoyed this video, drop a like on it. Lets me know if I should continue doing these, or if you enjoy the content, and drop a comment down below what you're most excited about when it comes to playing Spider-Man 2. But until then, guys, that is all for me. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, my name is That Guy Rye, and I will see you in the next video.